Let's talk about sourdough starter. Sourdough starter is a powerhouse of friendly bacteria and yeast. It is extremely good for your digestive health. It will revolutionize the way that you bake. And today we're going to talk about how to feed it, what to feed it, and when to feed it. So here's my starter jar. It's actually an old honey jar. And the size of your jar is really down to how much starter you're going to need. You can see mine is like super empty. It needs a good feed and I need to build it back up. You need about half a cup of starter per loaf of bread. I'm usually baking 5 to 10 loaves at a time. So I will get 4 cups of starter into this jar. But if you're just going to be baking 1 loaf, then you only really need a mason jar where you can hold half a cup. The other thing that's important is that your starter, because it's living, needs to be able to breathe. So all I do is I have a little bit of parchment paper and an elastic band to go over the top. Some people use muslin cloth or even coffee filter paper, but this still is pretty porous and allows the air to get through. My starter does pretty well with this. You'll also notice that my jar is pretty dirty. It's got lots of crusted bits of starter on the inside there. I change out my jar about once a week. If the bits on the side of the jar are not submerged, they will start to crust up and sometimes even go moldy. But I wanted to show you because there's probably about a tablespoon of starter in the bottom there. And I want to show you how I start a new jar so that you can do it yourself from scratch. In order to get a new jar of starter going, you are going to need at least a tablespoon's worth of starter from your old batch or from somebody else's starter. You can buy from people who sell active starter, or maybe you have a friend who bakes sourdough. Another way to make sourdough starter from scratch is to make your own, which is simply a matter of mixing together flour and water and leaving it exposed to the air, where over time it will inoculate itself by catching yeast from the environment. The third option is to purchase a dehydrated starter, which are readily available online. We do sell these dehydrated sourdough starters in our farm shop, and I will link them in the description box below. They come with full instructions and a QR code on the back, and they're a super easy way to get started or even to buy them as a gift and send them to a friend. Because your starter is living and active, it not only needs to breathe, but it needs to eat. You want to give your starter the best food possible. So you need to really look at getting the best flour possible. You definitely want to go with an unbleached flour. It can't be processed with any other chemical additives like potassium bromate or other additives that sometimes commercial baking flours have added to them, raising agents and things like that. And you also want it to be organic, because that is going to tell you that that crop has been grown and harvested without the use of any synthetic chemicals. Just last week, my neighbor asked if she could grab some starter from me because hers had died, and I sent some around there in a jar, and she texted me and said, "Can you tell me what you're doing or what you're feeding your starter?" because she hadn't seen bubbles and so much action in a starter for quite some time. Now, I've recently been getting into Einkorn, and I've been getting into that for various different reasons, from digestive health to the hybridization of modern wheat and all of the downstream effects of consuming that. However, that's a conversation for another day. But in feeding your starter, when you go back to the source, so the actual whole grain of wheat, what you're doing is you're providing your starter with a whole food. So the wheat berries are still pretty much as they came in from the field. So when the commercial wheat is milled, it's rolled, and the brown outer husk and the wheat germ are separated, and what you are buying in store-bought wheat is actually just the sugary, starchy part of the kernel. However, if you buy your own wheat berries, everything is still intact, meaning that the endosperm and the wheat germ are still there, and that is the part of the wheat that actually contains other nutrients like vitamins and minerals and fats, and those things can actually help support the life and activity of your starter. So I'm first going to set up the grain mill. I have an attachment that goes on my KitchenAid. So it's by Mock Mill, and it's just basically two little stones inside of here that grind the grain as it goes in through this hole. So it's got a funnel. So just want to make sure that the KitchenAid is locked and it won't lift up. And then I'm just going to turn it on to the low setting. And as you can hear, it's starting to grind. So the flour is milled, and out of about 2 cups of berries, I probably get about 4 to 5 cups of flour. So I'm going to feed my starter now, and basically what I'm looking for is the consistency of a thick pancake batter. I roughly go by eye, so if I see that I have a tablespoon of starter in my jar, then I want to add a tablespoon of flour. I typically go for as much flour as there is starter in the jar. So the more starter that you build, the more flour that you will add. And then I'm going to add water. The water has to be free of anything like chlorine or all of the different agents that are put into water during the treatment process. So if you don't have a home water filter, then it's better to buy some purified water and just keep it separate for your sourdough. Okay, so you can see the texture that I've got going there. It's not even really falling off my spoon. And that's all there is to it. A starter generally needs about 6 to 8 hours to become active. Now, if you have a hot kitchen, that is going to happen faster because heat is going to speed up the fermentation process. Or if you have a colder kitchen, then that is going to slow things down, and so your starter is going to take longer to become active and bubbly. Now, in terms of a feeding routine, it really depends on you. I feed my sourdough generally once a day, and I feed it at night. And the reason I do that is because often I'm baking in the morning. However, you can adjust the feeding times of your starter to fit your routine. Now, if you don't want to be feeding your starter more and more every day because you don't want to grow the amount that you have, then what you're going to do is you're actually going to take half of your starter out. You can decant it into another glass mason jar and keep it in the fridge. That is called discard. And you can either discard it or you can use it in many different baking recipes. If you're just going to be feeding your starter to produce 1 loaf a week, then you could actually even keep your starter in the fridge so that you don't have to feed it as much every day. Using the principle of heat speeding the reaction up and the cold temperature slowing it down, if you're going to be going away on holiday, then what you can do is you can put your starter in the fridge, and it will be fine. If you feed it before you go, it'll be fine for about a week. So we are now a full day later, and I just wanted to show you what the starter looks like. It has grown about double in size, and it's ready to be fed again. So I will just keep building this till the end of the week when I will be ready to bake my 5 loaves. If you like this video, you're going to love the next one because we're going to be getting our hands into the dough. I'm actually going to show you how to bake 5 loaves at one time. There's no Dutch oven, and it's a really simple process that I use just with my stove. Soft, tangy, delicious.
might just sit here and eat this whole loaf.